Southern California, what part?
Oh, I'm out in the desert. I'm out near Joshua Tree.
Yeah. Explain that to me.
Yeah,
Help me
so like if
understand.
you're in LA and you go straight east, you're gonna
Yeah.
hit Palm Springs area, and we're
Got
just
it.
up in the plateau just above Palm Springs.
Fit Body Boot Camp, my owner there is based out of Chino Hills.
Oh, in Chino, that's up
Yeah.
north.
Yep, so that's north of you. All right,
Yep.
I got you. Because we have meetings out there, and we've dipped into LA for some dinners and some different stuff in the past. So when you say the desert, I got a visual of exactly. But I was just
Yeah,
trying to see.
we're way past Chino Hills. We're way out uh
So keep
in the
going
wilderness.
east.
Yeah, in the east.
Oh man, is it you like where you are?
I do, man. Like I've always been drawn to the desert. I've always been, it has its ups and downs. It's cold in the winter and then really too hot in the summer. But I love being out here in nature, and it's quiet and desolate and offers a lot of solitude.
Let me uh, uh, let me get you introduced here for everyone, and then they'll probably pick up on why you enjoy that nature.
Yeah, it's a big
Just me,
reason.
yeah, just me reading and learning about you. So, man, thank you. Today on the Second Chance podcast, we're diving into an incredible journey of resilience and reinvention. My guest, Aram, say that right?
Yeah, Aram, you got it.
Ahram Arya. Ahram Arya, AHRAMARYA for you folks that
Like spelling.
are listening and like to hear me butcher my spelling. Faced a life-altering health crisis after toxic mold poisoning turned his world upside down. But instead of giving up, he rebuilt his life using human design and manifestation to not only heal himself but to heal or help others unlock their true potential. We're talking about transformation, spirituality, and how anyone can create their own second chance. Um, we were joking coming up there, man. I was like, I got about 45 minutes today, but even in my head, I think I'm going to scratch the surface and want you to come back because I don't think this stuff really interests me.
Mm.
So I can't wait to learn more about your work. I've got friends in somatics in just different places. One of my first guests on here really taught me a lot about heart and mind, and just so you know, a lot of folks that come in here are looking for that second chance or they're struggling in different areas of their life. And you touch on a medical episode that set you on this path. So that's something new for me, dude.
Mm.
So I can't thank you enough for taking time to come on here and let us learn more about what you do.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. The name of your podcast kind of stuck out to me. I was like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah, that's right. And if you like us, you got many. We're just going to talk about one, right? You got many second chances. We're just going to talk about the one. But let's go right into your health crisis
Yeah.
and that moment, like, and then everything get changed and where your kind of steps there. So walk us through that, man.
Yeah, so my life got turned upside down in 2012. I bought my first house. I kind of really thought I was about to go somewhere. I was married, had a good job, and I walked into a nightmare that a lot of homeowners wish they never had to face. Like the first thing that popped up in my head recently about this is you probably watched the news and you've seen all the fires in LA, and it's really devastating what that can do. But what I tell people all the time is like, man, I wish my house had burned down instead of having to go through toxic mold poisoning and discover that I had a toxic mold problem in my house. It's a whole can of worms, and to be honest, nobody really wants to talk about it. It's not a popular topic. People treat you like you're crazy, or maybe I need to get away from this person at times. Um, but what happened for me was, I had heard um, about what a toxic mold problem in a home can do to people. It's not fun, but I really didn't know how bad it could be. And in 2012, I started to get progressively sicker. Had all these weird. I won't even go into all of them. There's too many. So many weird symptoms, mental, physical, and autoimmune kind of symptoms. And Then one day, I went to my doctor. I really just guided myself there, following my intuition. And with the technology available back then, I was like, okay, what tests can I take to rule out the possibility that I might have mold in my house? So I got that test, and I hired an inspector, and he was literally, looked over my whole house. He was literally about to leave because they hadn't found anything, until he looked in, it was kind of like a movie. Like, he looked in the last spot, and then the last spot he looked, he found the problem. So at that point, I thought that, oh man, great. Well, now we've identified the problem. Now we just fix it, and I'll be good, and I'll claw my way back to health. But then things got a lot worse before they got a lot better from there. I spent the next 3 years trying to get my health back, and kind of lost a lot of who I was in that process.
Tell me, just for the folks that might be wondering, we talked about the symptoms, but is there anything that you say, yeah, this was something that was different from a normal cold or whatever, that someone who might be experiencing? Is there anything that you was able to isolate that was a unique symptom to what you were experiencing?
100%. Yeah, I think the first thing right off the bat is I'll tell people, tell anybody that the symptoms you're looking for. Well, before I get into the symptoms, it's kind of like this. Toxic mold can cause any illness. It can really look like anything, given enough time, because it's poison. When you have poison in your body and your body's dealing with toxins, it can affect your body in so many different ways, and your mind too. But the main symptoms you're looking for, one thing we call brain fog, which is that sort of disoriented, can't focus, kind of, you feel dumb. You feel like, you had one too many beers, but you didn't drink, kind of a thing. Body aches and pains. Fibromyalgia is the code name that a lot of doctors use, but body aches and pains that won't go away, soreness, stiffness, and then also gut symptoms are one of the other big ones. People feel like they're not digesting well. They've got all sorts of gut problems. Could manifest as lung problems, obviously sinus and cold stuff, but could be heart palpitations. The other big one, Jeff, is anxiety. Anxiety that, that's kind of runaway anxiety. What's happening when you're taking on too many mold toxins in your environment is that you're getting inflamed. And as we know, I'm not a doctor, but as we know, chronic inflammation of all these different types can cause all sorts of different diseases. So what I think people should know is, hey, if you have a chronic condition or symptom that isn't going away, do yourself a favor, get a toxin test for your body, and just rule out mold, because it's easy to rule it out if that's not the case.
And then what was the area in your house that ultimately ended up where you found that at?
It was in my basement, actually. So I had a home. I was living in the state of Utah, and I had a finished basement. And what had happened was that there was a pipe that went to the spigot on the outside of my house. And unbeknownst to me is that pipe had a pinhole leak in it. So it was hard for me to pinpoint where there might be a leak. I smelled something sometimes, but it would go away. But I ended up spending a lot of time in my basement because that's where my home office was.
Yep.
And what happens is, one of the reasons that this is such a big problem in the States is most of our houses are made with drywall. And on the back side of drywall is, guess what? Paper.
Yep.
If you have pipes in the house, people are worried about rain and weather events, which is, do your windows have flashing? All that's important. But like most of the time, these sneaky mold situations pop up because there's a pipe in your house somewhere that's behind drywall. And if there's any problem with the plumbing, it's sort of hidden. And then there's paper right there that can absorb the water. And really, that's one of the biggest problems is the drywall in this country.
Yeah. I record out of my studio inside of my house as well, and I was sitting here reading about you and just thinking I have a place where I had a my outdoor spigot and it started to drip, right, and I'm like, I gotta get that fixed. Yeah, I was I made myself wrote a note like text my
Yeah.
guy and say, hey man, can we come over and replace this piece of drywall because I'm getting ready to paint down here. And I was thinking about that, and you got me re-inspired, yeah,
Yeah.
especially now because you're like, it was in my basement. I'm like, crap, I'm right in here right now.
Well,
Um,
winterizing your home is something that people forget to do as
yeah,
well. Flushing your pipes before you turn them off for the winter, so you don't have a frozen pipe. In places that it's cold. A lot of people don't even know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
They've got to do that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the you're absolutely right, man. We don't know what we don't know, and then folks don't realize like all those little things that wear over time or whatever, and then my and where I'm at, just for reference, I have a drop ceiling that comes down, and the pipes and everything was put into a roughed out basement. And then they come back and they did a drop ceiling, and then they put up a wall, right? So everything is concealed. So for me to get in there to turn that water on, I have to push back the drop ceiling tile and reach in. I can see the top of it, and then it's right, and you hear the thing, and then you hear the water. I can't see the drip until the wall started to actually deteriorate. So that means that's how much water dripped in behind there.
Right.
Yeah. You're like,
Right.
Jeff,
So
you need to stop this podcast and call someone
yeah,
right now.
you need to pick up the red phone right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, this takes you on a pretty unique journey, though.
Yeah.
Tell me, before we jump into that, tell me about your struggles inside of traditional healthcare.
Oh man,
That's be- you.
that's a whole other podcast right there, dude.
If you're not watching, if you're not watching, folks, I mean, I because like knowing his symptoms, and he is literally, I'm thinking to myself about him beating his head against the wall trying to get help, saying, "What? Yeah, this is not working." They're throwing pills at you, they're throwing everything, all the tests. You've done everything under the sun. I can imagine, but was that what it was like?
Initially, yeah, that this was my rude awakening into what traditional healthcare is good for, and then what it's not.
Yeah.
And traditional healthcare will save your life if you need an operation, or you got a broken leg. You need to run to the emergency room, and
Yep.
guess what? They'll save your life. Great, but they're not so good at diagnosing stuff. You know, just to cut right to it, when you're dealing with toxins, I mean, we're almost dating ourselves now, but I bet you probably saw Aaron Brockovich.
Yeah.
You probably saw that movie. And when it comes to environmental toxins, traditional healthcare is kind of out to lunch because they don't look for it. They simply don't do the tests to look for toxins because there's no pill they can give you. The way you get toxins out of your body is through detoxification, through chelation, other technical stuff you can read about, but there is no diagnosis of that. So what they do in my case was I went to a pulmonologist, I went to a cardiologist, and I'm like 33 years old at the time. I was a
Yeah.
runner. I was like, they're like, what are you doing here? The nurses are like, do you have COPD or something? Because like we don't treat people that are your age and look like you. And I was like, well, I can't breathe, so that's why I'm here. And eventually, I've got to ask for a set of allergy tests. And the one test I took, and this is like 12, 13 years ago, one test I took showed whether or not there were antibodies in my blood that were fighting mold or not. And that one was positive. So that's the one I was like, okay, that's it. But now, decade plus later, the tests have come so far.
Yeah.
I was literally like trying to find a needle in a haystack back then to find definitive proof. And the tests that are available now, it's easy. It's if there's a red alert with all the different toxins and that are coming out of you, if that's your problem. So that's really the good news for people who are trying to determine if this is indeed their problem nowadays.
Yeah. Man, and like you said, you get into fibromyalgia and and you get into just these ghost like symptoms, and we're not thinking mold at this point in time, and you're like, man, what is? And so they're starting to make names up for things they think you have, and
Yes.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
fibromyalgia.
I
Yeah.
can see it from the other side, like the
Mm.
frustration on their side, 'cause they want to fix you. They're frustrated they can't, that you're back, right? And they're like, I worked as an EMT and
Okay,
as a
great.
tech in the emergency room, right? So you get the guy in, you're not there trying to get pain pills, right? So they're like, is he crazy?
Yeah.
Is he just got some hypochondriac issues, or
Mhm.
is this because if you'd have been in saying my back hurt, or I have an ache or pain. Wait a minute, you got maybe there's underlying drug addiction, and that's part of it, right? And
100.
but yeah, man, I could totally see your frustrations, but through those frustrations, this is where the sweet spot comes in, right? Through these frustrations, take that step, I got sick and tired, or this, or how did this evolve, and walk us through kind of what you discovered, man. This is the exciting part.
Yeah. So, well, to cut to the ending, what I've done is to create a service. The service that I've created is called toxicmoldhero.com, and I hope to evolve it into an official nonprofit someday. But right now, it's just a service, and um, so that's kind of what I've done with it. Is I wanted to create a resource that really helps people on a one-on-one level because of all the overwhelm and all the unknowns of this process. Um, but getting to, backing up to your question of what was the turning point. The turning point was realizing that I'm sensitive to toxic mold, and only 20, well, it's a pretty big percentage. 25% of people are like me and are predisposed to develop a hypersensitivity. I mean, it's a mouthful, but that's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
So the turning point for me was literally realizing that I had to hit the eject button. I had to accept the worst case scenario, which is that I had to leave my house and I had to get rid of absolutely everything I owned. So when you're trying to get somewhere in life and all of a sudden you get the rug pulled out from under you, and then you can't work and your brain's on fire. I went through some pretty dark days for about a year. But the turning point really is just saying, okay, I've got these new parameters. Yes, there are limitations if you want to look at it that way, but I got these new guardrails on life that says, okay, if I'm sensitive to toxic mold for the rest of my life, then okay, great. I got to make these decisions, or I've got to work that in to where I'm going from here. But that was about a 3-year process of real deep acceptance about what sort of different choices I was going to need to make to set myself up for future success.
And that took you down kind of a hero's spiritual journey. Um, Talk about that and how
Yeah.
that kind of evolved for you.
So after that first 3 years, after 3 years, I really actually did get my life back. But that was sort of like, that wasn't the exact climax of it all. I had to face, toxic mold a couple more times, actually. New environments, new jobs, new situations. There's honestly too many twists and turns. It belongs in a book or a movie to encapsulate it all. But after facing this a couple more times, that's actually when I really when I really hit rock bottom. So my rock bottom was again junking my possessions, leaving where I was living, and I got so low, that I could, to a point that I couldn't really get any lower. And honestly, that's when the spiritual journey started. And that's when I found God. I started to use the miraculous healing powers of plant medicine to heal myself. And a bunch of synchronicities happened. I found this science called human design, which I use in my work now. But then through healing myself, all of these new doors opened, and the old me really kind of died, and I found a completely new sense of self and a completely new direction in life.
Um, how did you manage kind of understanding you're just going to have to deal with this forever, right? How is this like when you so if we're going to speak to the person there who knows this or is like discovering this, like, wait,
Mm-hmm.
this is me. There's some obstacles of it's no my wife shares a shellfish allergy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, we can't go to this restaurant because they don't separate, right? So there's lifestyle changes and all those things. And I think it's what I'd like to speak to is like,
Mm-hmm.
now you know this.
Yep.
And before we deep dive into human design, what's that, how does this affect your life? How does it affect your day to day, or what do you avoid? What do you accept?
Yeah. Well, I avoided a lot of this for many years, and I've done the following in stages. But basically, what people should know is that it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. But there's certain things, choices I've made. Like, for instance, I'm in a house right now that I'm renting, and there's no there's nothing special about this house that's like mold proof or anything. It's just a regular
Yeah.
house. But the first thing I do is I'm hyper vigilant about maintaining my home, and looking for water damage, making sure there's no leaks and stuff like that, just so I don't get blindsided. um, finding a safe place to live for people like me can be very challenging, because
Right.
you have no idea what the history of this building or this house was before you got there. So the other thing I do is to avoid, technically what I do is called mold avoidance, but that sounds really bad because it's actually
Yeah.
not like mold is out to get you, and right around the corner there's a boogie monster and then you're going to get really sick. The issue is, or it's kind of like this: it's not really a problem unless it's a problem.
Yep.
So there's this kind of prevention, vigilance, that I've got to do. Weird stuff I do is like, I don't let anybody in my car. I don't give friends rides. It sucks, but I do that because I don't know if they live in a moldy house. If
Yeah.
they live in a moldy house and don't know it and jump in my car, and then all of a sudden there's spores in my car, then I might be suffering for months dealing with that. So there's stuff like that that me and my wife do to kind of live this life of semi quarantine. Like when we go in to check, we were just down in Mexico for my birthday, and we go into the hotel room, right? So before we open our bags or do anything, we check the hotel room. We just do we smell, we feel, we look around and we're like, okay, is this good? Okay, it's good. And if not, then we switch rooms.
Yeah. I've um yeah, vacation and stuff. I've stayed at some places where I'm like, yeah,
Hotels can be the
yeah,
worst, man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does ozone? Have you ever used an ozone machine? I had heard that is I used one of those at my gym during COVID because it's supposed to be such a, it cleans the air.
Mm-hmm.
So we remember. I don't know whether you remember during COVID when when they're wanting to keep us kept us locked down, but everybody's kind of like Texas and Florida, and they're like, oh, everybody Texas, and then they had a peak. during like July, and they blamed it on COVID going into the HVAC system and circulating. Remember that? So
Yep.
I bought an ozone machine,
Hmm.
set it up, and ran it through my HVACs after every day. And when you come in, you had you basically opened up to a fresh room. Is that something that folks can deploy to help manage that?
It's a great question. I've even taken an ozone IV where they'll do intravenous ozone. I walked out of the clinic one time after the first time doing that. I was like, man, this feels amazing. I feel great. Now it only lasted like a day, and I was kind of back to where I was, but like for that day, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But more to the point of your question. Here's one of the big challenges about this issue for homeowners or anybody. A lot of people are treating a problem before they diagnose it.
Yeah.
So ozone can be great, but I think about that as a preventative maintenance kind of thing. It is not a solution if you have a serious problem. So if you think you got a serious problem, the best thing you can do is hire a professional to do a top to bottom inspection of your house, like I did, like I was explaining earlier.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Human design and manifestation play a big role in your coaching. How do you use those tools to help people unlock their creativity and rediscover their potentials?
Yeah. So, me discovering human design on my journey, I just sort of found it at the strangest, weirdest time when I was so broken down as a human being. I found this tool. I was on a trip in Arizona, and somebody showed it to me. And long story short is, I never defined myself as a spiritual person. I'm not
Right.
into astrology. I was into the idea of a higher power for sure, but never really got down with any religion in particular. I was raised as a Christian, but the church I grew up in really didn't resonate with me. So you could say that I was kind of an intuitively spiritual person,
Mm-hmm.
interested in why I was here, all the questions of the universe, philosophies, all that stuff really interested me, but not what I would have called a spiritual person. And human design really just broke the mold and smashed all my stereotypes about what mystical knowledge can look like. So for people that don't know what the heck I'm talking about, human design is a science, and all you need is your birthday and the time you were born. And when you put that into the engine or the software, you can get that on my website, or mybodygraph.com is one I tell people. That's like the official site. What you receive is what I like to call a personal operating system. It tells you these archetypes and these qualities about you that you have for life that are basically hardwired. So it's basically tells you, like in the story of nature versus nurture, like who am I, and what's natural, and what have I picked up along the way. It basically tells you your hardwired nature. What are the things about you energetically, and it's a bit hard to describe, but there's a lot of different qualities it describes. And then what we realize in that process of seeing who we really are at our core, all of a sudden, a lot of people compare that to the idea of who they are, of who they've picked up through nurture and all their, who their parents were and where they lived and what they believed. So long story short, there is, for me, human design provided this profound reset on who I really am inside. And when I saw it, it almost brought me to tears. I was just, when I really understood what it was, and what it allowed me to be from there on out. Then I became obsessed with the system, and I was like, everybody should know about this.
I'm not. I'm not going to disagree with you, and I wanted to share something with you.
Hmm.
So, I have my own paths and journeys that I've been following, and I pay attention to when things come into my life.
Mm.
And um, I was working the week before Thanksgiving and kind of working through some different things, and um, human design came into my life. And I was was doing some research and doing some listening and all those things, and I ultimately went and did on Thanksgiving. I went and did this. I went and did do the URL you just mentioned,
Mm.
and I
Cool.
am a life force. I was when you got going, I was like, we're going right where. So I did mine, my date of birth, my time of birth. I had to message my mom like, hey, remind me what time. She's like, I think it's this. I'm like, get me closer than I think.
Yeah.
So she told me, and she had told me before that it was the time, and so. And that's a big deal, folks. Is you want to be? If not, there's an exercise to help you get close to drill it down. And man, I'm telling you, when I was reading it,
Mm.
and so I kept kind of going through it. I felt like someone knew me.
Yeah.
Um, and mine came back that I was the life force. Um, um, it goes through my signature and all those different things like that. And then my core identity is being a generator. And then this is one of mine that really spoke to me. Now I wanted to leave this or just let the folks know how powerful this is. I'm sitting here reading it,
Mm.
just like what you would, and I'm going through it, and it's like, you're a generator. Think of yourself as battery that powers the world. You got a lot of energy, but only if you're doing things that light you up. And I'm like, man, that is totally me. Um, and then it's like if you're doing what you should do but don't enjoy, you'll get burned out and frustrated. Your job in life is to respond in what's in front of you.
Mhm.
And part of my walk has been realizing that the more I chase, the further things get away from me. And in the last couple of years, I was making some new decisions on how I wanted to approach my situation. And one of them was I was like, I'm done chasing. And I just had this moment. I'm like, I'm really going to just wait and see what comes to me because I feel like I've been heading in the wrong direction. And this is a couple of years ago. And so things have happened. And here I was, right? And
Mm.
this was the last thing I wanted to end with. And I wanted you to kind of help me understand or help the world, right? I'm giving you a couple
This is
things that
great.
was
Yeah.
about me. My life thing, and this is me. I was public safety. I did all the thing. My purpose revolves around service and improvement. You're
Mm.
here to make things better. And dude, you don't know how often I say I leave things better than I found them.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm reading this, I'm like, whether that's processes, people, or ideas, think of yourself as a fixer. I call myself a fixer all the time, break glass in case of emergency, who thrives on spotting what's broken and improving it, but just don't let perfectionism drag you down. And
Mm-hmm.
I read those paragraphs and I like texted my wife and I said, she was in the other room with the kids. I was like, do this test and let me know if you feel like it's stalking you as well. But you're an expert in this,
Mm.
man, and
Yeah.
we've been consuming materials on this. And when we connected, I was like, maybe this is the path that you're going to take me, and you did. But unpack that,
Yeah.
folks. What he just talked about, what Aram just talked about, I've been researching and I've been doing, and so when you do these results, I just shared with you all part and him part of the results that this thing and it gives you a full list and all sorts of cool stuff, a fully PDF. But that's part of the results, and it really spoke
Mm.
to me.
That's so cool. Hey, quick question. Can you see what your profile is?
Yep. Two fourths. Did I
Two
say
four.
that right? Two
Yeah.
fourths. The easy breezy genius.
Two fours. So what I'll tell you about yourself. So two things I'm picking up for you right now. Um, so the profile is the 2-4, what's called the hermit opportunist. So what it means for you, Jeff, is that you really do your best work alone.
Yeah.
At first, you do your internal work first, and you need to be alone, and we need to leave you alone so that you can have that insight or that response to what's happening around you. But then you're going to take whatever it is you learn or want to do to your network, to the group in kind of an opportunistic fashion. You're going to wait for the right moment to share whatever it is you're going to do. And the life purpose or the incarnation cross aspect of it, when anyone ever has the cross of service, one of the big themes around service too is this theme of correction. So it's like you kind of have this unconscious drive to correct what's wrong, so that everyone's healthier or society works better. So it's just kind of like poking and prodding around to see what can be fixed, and then that way of sharing your work, like that's what's really super fulfilling for you.
And you're spot on, man. Right? So like, I thought it was really cool, and it was a very, it sometimes you lose your path. Sometimes, in your mind, you're like, am I heading in the right direction? Is this what I was made to do? Is this my purpose? And when I was doing this and I was going through it now, and this is something I'm doing way later in life, and it mirrored a lot of just who I am and what I've done. And as far as I try to get away from some things of how life pulls me right back into them. So when you look at that, is you take things like human design, and then you help tell me how you use that in your coaching and in the
Yep.
manifestation part,
Yep.
just for our listeners to kind of explain how you intertwine those to create that plan to help someone kind of get out of their own way.
Exactly. Yeah. So helping someone get unstuck, whatever they're stuck with, could be a midlife crisis, could be a bad marriage, could be an unfulfilling job, could be waking up at some point and realizing that, just like you described, in deciding to wait for what comes to you, and then human design comes to you knocking on the door. It's like, hey, this is a reset that you didn't know you needed. Thanks. So the way I use it with people is it's number one, that's how most of my best clients find me, is they get curious about their human design. They find me, or they find something I've written somewhere, and they just trust themselves to, if they want to do a session, you pick somebody out there. And for those people that pick me, what you're really getting is an application to your life. This isn't fortune telling. It's not an adaptation of something else. I'm not psychic. I'm literally just reading, an encyclopedia of knowledge we picked just the pages that are for you. So it's very concrete stuff. A lot of, I had a client one time give me this most amazing quote, and she said, human design describes me in ways I never thought possible. So
Yeah.
she told me that it used this new language to describe things that we don't have language for in everyday life. That's one of the gifts, is that it gives you new concepts to understand who you are and where you're going. Now, when it comes to the manifestation piece, I have different tools and hacks and practices I give people around this central idea. And my central idea in coaching is basically this. It's like, we will solve whatever you think is wrong with you. We will fix any place that you're stuck, but we can only spend so much time on understanding that problem and how you got there. The way we actually fix it is we're going to create something. We're going to create something new. We're going to fill in that gap of that experience you wanted to have, and we're going to create that experience that you want to have in your life, that you're telling me is going to be fulfilling for you. And then learning how to create what's fulfilling, right? That's what actually heals the thing that's wrong. So I like to say that creation is the thing that heals everything you think is wrong about you. Where human design comes in is in the strategies. It's like, you're going to create, your process of creativity, of creating what it is you want, is different than mine. And you have a different purpose. There's a different not only end result of whatever it is you're doing, but there's just a different way that you're creative. I can read a self-help book and I can try to copy someone else's way of doing it. And, 50% of it may work, but 50% of it may not jibe with me. So human design is that cheat code that tells you, no, this is how you respond to things, or this is how you can expect things, or this is how you best communicate. Let's do more of that.
Man, that's some powerful stuff, dude. Listen. I can't say I'm a practitioner, but I'm a user, right? I'm an adapter of this. And for the folks that don't know, we connected online, and you were like, hey, yeah, I'll give you a session or whatever. And I was like, I read it. I was like, I'll see if I can work it in, see if I can work it in. But um, my wife was like, "Hey, just remember your intuition comes through your spleen," and she had picked that up through human design. And so we and her had these conversations about it. Um, to give her that shameless plug of advice she had given me, right? Because I'm going to share this episode with her. So you need to listen to this because it'll be one of our little aha moments of life putting the right people in our lives at the right time. And so I had but I kept thinking, I was like, I wonder if this is where we're going to end up. And I just kind of listened to my gut. My all my episodes this week has really been on very, and I love it when they land like this. It's a little bit of intuition, it's a little bit of spirituality, and I had some things that kind of clouded some clarity, if that makes sense, over the weekend, and then when I kicked off Monday, it was like boom, and then I'm finishing up. I think I got a couple more episodes tomorrow. I'll see how they go. But like my Thursday or Wednesday episode is with you helping me helping explain that maybe I'm not on the wrong path, and maybe I am finding some clarity in what I do. So I wanted to stop and just really pause and tell you a little more about me. So but I'm telling you because I want everyone else to hear it. I've struggled with purpose and the stuff that you do and the clarity that these things like this that gets overlooked. Um, I've struggled with purpose and through my life, and I felt like I was a crap magnet, bad luck, all those things along the way. And I really, chased success in entrepreneurship and really pursued this or pursued that. And when I started finding folks like yourself that have programs that are different and unique, and it helps you dig deep into actually who you are. And man, the work. I'm really glad that it took us into this moment because I wanted to share, folks, like I can tell you all what this means to me and what the work you're doing. Um, I am no. I'm ultimately, I was just looking at your site. I'm like, all right, I got to figure out like, well, a little coaching session so you and I can go down the rabbit hole a little further. Um, but that's what you do. And I wanted to echo that while we were here in this moment to just really give a lot of praise to the work that you do, and not even knowing you before this moment, but what I had self accomplished along the way. But life was putting it in front of me, but I had done a lot of other work. So this is not we're not talking, a prescription pad. This is stuff that is a little different. It's a little more mind. It's a little more spiritual focused. It's a little more, as my friend Ninette would call it, it's a little more woo woo. And not everybody's in tune with it. But folks, let me tell you, this may be placing. You may have these little things, positive things of different paths that's fallen in your life, and that's what's been going on with me for the last 5 years. I could storyboard you the books that has fled, like just kind of like, here you go, Jeff, here you go, Jeff, here you go, and I connected with them. And this is one of those moments to where human design found its way into my life at the right time, with the right people, with the right moments, and then it reinforces it even more that a stranger books with me to be on my podcast to reinforce where I'm at in my moment. So I think I'm in the right spot,
That's
right?
beautiful, man.
I just wanted to share that with you because it's it's been a powerful moment for me. Um, tell me this real quick. Um, folks that are stuck, the people that I just spoke to, keep talking to them and talk them into things that they can do. Just give them a couple insights of simple little work they can do, and maybe even and then leave us with how they can connect with you to help further this conversation. feel like I'm an advertisement for you
Oh,
now.
for sure. That was a great intro and segue right there. Thank you for that. Yeah, you can find me on my website. It's just my name, ahramarya.org. If you want to look up your human design, you just click on Get My Chart on my site, and you can enter your birth information. Grab your birth certificate. A lot of people kind of know what minute they were born, but grab your birth certificate, call your mom, get that dialed in. Now, if you're interested in human design, guaranteed when you see it the first time, you're gonna be like, "What the hell is this?" It's written in a weird coded language. It won't make sense at first. That's okay. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but trust me, it's worth it if you want to climb up there. Jeff, I guess I'll try to leave you with this. One of the big connections I made in my life and early on in my journey is recognizing the connection between intentions and prayers. I was brought up, I think like most people, to believe that prayers were cries for help, and asking for help, or some people would only pray when things got so bad they had no other option. Right? And through my work, particularly I worked with a men's organization for years where I just really honed my skills in this, is the power of intention and the power of prayer together. That's really where it happens. We really have to practice saying and repeating and doing and being what we want if it's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
And prayer is something we can do to help align, to help God fill in the gaps for us, where there's holes in our plan. So that's the simplest thing I tell people is like, you gotta, if you want your life to head in a certain direction, you gotta write it down, you gotta eat it, you gotta breathe it, you gotta say it, and then you gotta pray about it. And then just wait and see what happens, what the universe will send you in the form of a new person, an opportunity. That's the simplest advice I think I could give anybody.
Man, that's $100,000 worth of advice for somebody who's struggling. That's some big words for someone who's, and I say that because I know what that would have meant, and me being more of an advocate for what the work that you do and what it's meant to me is, I know that how that would have helped me develop 5 to 10 years ago when I was stuck. I really appreciate you, and I'm glad this conversation ended up where it did, because it's this is one of those episodes to where when folks are struggling and you get to I'll assemble them one day, but you fall into my category of guests that I give the title Hope Dealer, and you get to be classified as one of my hope dealer episodes because when people are lost and they're struggling, man, all they're trying to find, and folks like yourself that are doing the work that you do, who's experienced what you experience, come along and give them hope. And so I want to tell you and how this spoke to me personally and helped me. I really appreciate the just how everything kind of intertwines because I believe in those moments, and I've been clipping them off like crazy this week with just the people that's been kind of coming and going, and I've been like, all right. So but man, I want to get you back. I want to I want us maybe to go through, if we can grab a client or somebody, a success story that we can work through, and you can tell the story of what that looks like from your coaching side and the problem, how you solved it, and the work that you do. So let's maybe you and I can get back together in a few weeks, and we can just go through that so we can have something that kind of coattails what we're doing. But I just want to thank you, brother. Appreciate you being here.